we're gonna start from the top. Normally I would do birthdays, but the biggest news this week was the passing of Kamala. Lots of tributes to Kamala. I thought we could spend some time talking about Kamala and some of our memories of Kamala.
Lots of tributes indeed. I've even painted a moon and stars on my belly. Would you like to see?
Oh boy.
You are a man.
You know, one thing about him is, if I want to say something about Kamala, is that he's proof that you don't need to be a technical wizard to have a career in pro wrestling. Gimmick is very heavy. He got this gimmick, the Kamala, the Uganda Giant, from Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler in Memphis. And the debut was actually pretty funny because it was filmed in the Jerry Jarrett's backyard, and it made it look like the wilderness. You know, he's had feuds with Hulk Hogan, Undertaker, the SummerSlam feud he had with Undertaker, where it was like a casket match, SummerSlam '92.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and I mean, like the thing about like Kamala is that he's one of the wrestlers that a lot of people who watched remember and often mimic with slapping their belly and everything like that. He also, here's a fun fact, has one of the most rare Hasbro dolls out there, Hasbro action figures, because there's one that was mispainted or painted differently, and that one's actually probably the most expensive one to find. One of my favorite memories of Kamala, especially in the later years, was when he made an appearance during the Diva Search, where they had to, there's a curtain and or something, and they had to, like, it opened up and they had to try to seduce whoever was on the other end, and it was Kamala. And the surprise is, like, I remember, like, I think it was like Maria Kanellis, like her face, and she just a shock, but then started laughing, and I think she started rubbing his belly or something like that. But the fact that he was very true, very, very, you didn't see him break kayfabe too much. I mean, he always stayed in character. He always, even as a wrestler, and that's one of the things that, kind of bugs me today, is that, with wrestling, often wrestlers will break character while they're performing in the ring. They kind of forget who they are or what the story they're trying to tell out of the ring, and they break character, or they're not true to it. And Kamala was always true to it. Even down to not even knowing how to pin his foe. So it's very, I know, like, his last couple years weren't the best years, losing his legs and everything. And it's sad. It's very sad. Another one from the 80s. But yes. Oh, and one of my favorite autographs I have is my Kamala autograph. I got in the Pro Wrestling Crate years ago.
Oh, nice. Well, hey, at least you got a signature of, souvenir from him.
You could tell me he was in the Hall of Fame, and I would believe you. Like, he's one of the guys that should be in there. I mean, he is a timeless character.
Texas Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I know he often, like, he was always in and out with WWF.
He should be in the Hall of Fame. Like Derek said, he is one of those characters where, he had matches, memorable matches with what some of the stars, and he's one of those characters where you just remember him, so, from the face paint to the patent on the belly, he was just one of those special characters. So, yeah.
No, he is not in the Hall of Fame, but there was rumors back that he was supposed to be in the 2013 class of Hall of Fame.
Well, there was the big lawsuit. A lot of the former talent were going after the WWE for concussion lawsuits. So there's a lot of talent that's been involved in that have prevented them from going in the Hall of Fame. Demolition's a name that's involved in that. They're not in the Hall of Fame. There's
probably a good list of them, yeah.
Anyway, Kamala, I can, watching wrestling in the 90s, when he came back, he was more of a, I don't want to say comedic wrestler, but he was kind of a really colorful heel with the face paint, and he would wouldn't talk. He would and all that. And I remember he was
What did
with
he do?
Slick. Wasn't he always like, I can't do it.
No, I think you did a pretty good impression.
So he was with Slick, and I just remember the storyline about you are a man,
Yeah.
you could talk and everything, and
10-pin bowling.
Yeah, wow.
Bowling on. That's why I like. That's another thing about Kamala was the Coliseum video vignettes they used to have with them.
So he the finishing move. He'd always like slap the belly, run the ropes, do the splash. He had a long career, like long before that. I remember watching one of those old Maple Leaf Garden shows in the 80s, mid 80s, early to mid 80s, where he's going against Andre at Maple Leaf Gardens. Like, he was a huge heel at the time. Like, he would go territory to territory. He worked world class. He worked like everywhere long before his WWE run. So, he had a really good career. I got to meet Kamala, actually.
Ooh. Did you rub his belly?
No, I did not.
Where did you meet him, Matt?
I met him in Oshawa at the Warrior One show. So that was in
2000. It was June 26, 2004.
That's correct. Or 2005.
That's what I said. 2005.
Yeah, so I met him there. He teamed with Crazy Steve. He was in a tag match. Crazy Steve against the Highlanders.
Ooh.
So you can tell the time.
Yeah.
When he was hot at the time, right? The Highlanders were the big indie team then. And they were just getting ready for their WWE run. But Kamala did autographs before the show. And he had somebody was Kimchi at the table with him. And my friend Jay, the Snowman, was with me. And he always had awesome programs, old wrestling programs. So he had all these cool programs from the old London Gardens when WWF would go there in like the 80s, late 80s.
Yeah.
And he had some awesome pictures of Kamala that he signed, and Kamala remembered the pictures and stuff. So he was.
That's the best part of something like that. That's the
if
best.
you ever hear Kamala talk out of character,
yeah,
he was like a southern.
These are nice pictures you have. Like, he had like that, like, very boisterous voice.
Well, he didn't quite sound like Freight Train, but
he's from Mississippi.
Yeah, he's from
Mississippi.
Yeah,
so he got that southern twang in there. And what I was gonna say there, Matt, was about the signing the pictures and him remembering. That's kind of a cool memory that Jay can always have. That he and you just seeing him kind of remember the pictures. Oh yeah, I remember that show, or that type of thing. I remember having an experience like that, and the guy looked at the picture and he was like, I look better in this picture than I do now. And I'm like, oh, and I kind of just like, are you gonna sign the picture? And I walked off, but I was like, but it's kind of a cool like thing when they notice that type of moment.
The only thing that sucked that night is Kamala lost. And it was due to that dastardly Jimmy Hart.
Oh, Jimmy Hart.
That's delicious, baby.
Yeah. One thing I just want to add before we change topics is the thing with Kamala is you won't see that gimmick too much more these days with the way that the world is. Yes. A lot of people see it as, or perceive it as, like a racist gimmick. And that kind of gimmick you really won't see, but I don't understand it myself, and that's only because like I'm ignorant. But like I know like there are like people out there that are actually like that, like like in Africa and China, and you saw like it's funny because like if you go to the timeline of that character, Umaga was the next one to kind of be like the headhunter and everything like that. And a fun fact is Kamala's last match ever in WWF or WWE was against Umaga.
Wow.
It happened on a Raw. He put over Umaga.
Umaga technically would have been the updated version of.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you go
Yeah.
along, like that is, and you probably won't see it that gimmick anymore in wrestling.
No,
Yeah, you wouldn't think so, but every 5 or so years, WWE will come out with something that.
Well, if you really want to go, the closest thing that they had to that would probably be the Usos when they were tag teaming, like when they had the Umaga war paint and that, and they did the dance.
Yeah, I would probably say if you know closer comparison would probably be to Samoa Joe if he did that type of gimmick and did the war paint, being,
Well, he kind of did it in TNA, but you won't see him do it in WWE. Like,
true. But yes,
Anyway,
our
before we
condolences